Hello, this is Terrence McNally. Today's show features archived half-hour conversations with two impactful, innovative, and wise elders recently in the news. In the first half, you'll hear my conversation with the great Phil Donahue, who died August 18th at the age of 88. A remarkable communicator and citizen, he always seemed to me to be focused as much on the common good as he was on ratings, and he delivered well on both. His was the first popular talk show to feature audience participation. Donahue was famously let go by MSNBC, then owned by General Electric, because he opposed the imminent U.S. invasion of Iraq and would be, quote, a difficult public face for NBC in a time of war, unquote. Here's our 2007 conversation about Body of War, the documentary he co-directed that tells the story of a severely disabled Iraq War veteran on his return home. In the second half, you'll hear my 2008 conversation with Nobel Peace Prize winner Muhammad Yunus, pioneer of microcredit, about his work and his book, Creating a World Without Poverty. Yunus has been serving since August 8th as the chief advisor of the interim government of Bangladesh following the resignation of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina amid nationwide student and public protests against the government. You can learn more at Grameen Foundation, Grameen, GrameenFoundation.org, or at MuhammadYunus.org. Hello, I'm Terry McNally, and welcome to Free Forum. Phil Donahue pioneered the modern television talk show. Donahue, his show, ran for 29 years and used its time to explore and to debate issues that mattered to its audiences. And despite being one of MSNBC's highest-rated programs, Donahue's brief return to television was canceled in February 2003. A leaked internal NBC memo stated that Donahue had to be fired because he would be, quote, a difficult public face for NBC in a time of war. Now Phil Donahue has collaborated with veteran documentary filmmaker Ellen Spiro to give us an unsanitized account of one young man's evolution from enlisted soldier to anti-war veteran. Thomas Young grew up in Kansas City, and like many patriotic young men and women, he responded to a call to action after 9/11. Yet after less than 1 week in Iraq, he received a bullet injury to the spine that paralyzed his body. The film Body of War intercuts two parallel stories. Thomas struggles to deal with the life-altering complexities of his injuries, while we see the congressional deliberations in October 2002, which granted President Bush authority to invade Iraq. Here on Free Forum, we explore the lives, the work, the ideas of individuals that I suspect have pieces of the puzzle of a world that just might work. We look at new, innovative, provocative approaches to business, environment, health, science, politics, media, all based on the fact that I believe we can do better, and I want to find out how. Phil Donahue and The Donahue Show have been honored with 20 Daytime Emmy Awards, including 9 for Outstanding Host and a George Foster Peabody Broadcasting Journalism Award. The format Phil Donahue introduced on November 6, 1967 as The Phil Donahue Show on WLWD in Dayton, Ohio, launched the first audience participation television talk show and changed the face of American daytime television. He used that television talk show format to interview world leaders, celebrities, newsmakers, and people from all walks of life. And for over 29 years, he examined human behavior, focused national debates, and has provided a democratic forum for presidential candidates. For his outstanding contribution to television and American culture, Mr. Donahue was inducted into the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences Hall of Fame in November 20th, 1993. Welcome, Phil Donahue, to Free Forum.
Thank you, Terrence. Pleased to be here.
I'd like listeners to get a feel for the people behind the ideas and the work and, in some cases, the reputations that we end up dealing with. So, first, what led you to broadcasting, and then how did you invent Donahue?
Well, as you said, Donahue was born in 1967. I was a news guy. I was, the guy at local news, Channel 7, Dayton, Ohio. And I was the guy with the mic, who would say to the fire chief, "What did it look like when you got here, chief?" And he'd say, "It looked like a fire. What do you think?" And you could see the building collapsing behind us. That was my life for maybe 4 or 5 years. I mean, City Hall, visiting dignitaries, covering the city commission and those and the cops. And suddenly two-way radio became big. I don't have to tell you about this. I'm sure you remember you could call in and actually you were on the air. I mean, it was huge. It was a big deal.
Right. I remember it was contests on rock and roll stations.
Well, I wasn't near that, but I just remember Westinghouse in Boston, WBZ had a wonderful, and that's a 50,000 watt. I used to listen to it.
I used to listen to it in Florida.
And I thought, I can do this. But in any event, inevitably, talk radio came to the radio station that I was working for. The news department serviced television and radio. So, we'll put Donahue in there. He knows the mayor. I had a certain knowledge of the city and politics and so on. And I insisted that I have ability to have a guest on long distance. So you didn't have to come to Dayton, Ohio, which nobody knew where it was anyway, to be on my afternoon radio show. So I had Bobby Kennedy from his office in Washington. I remember we had not Maria Oswald, his mother. I can't remember.
Oh, I don't remember the mother's name.
Yeah,
Marina maybe. But
no, Marina was the wife.
Okay.
Anyway, people like that, and Hugh Hefner and the housewives in Dayton could call up and actually talk to these, my goodness, we went, the ratings were just fabulous. Remember, this is first. No one else had done this before. So somebody finally said along the way, why don't we do this on television? And I thought, I didn't know what we would do when the caller was talking. What visual are you going to do? Somehow, first of all, we always flogged the callers. We wouldn't let anybody go on and on. Mm-hmm. We were very good at it. And we had a screener, who said, all of that. So we had a minimum amount of, am I on yet?
Yeah,
How many times have you heard,
Yep.
Me? Yes, turn your radio down, please. Turn your radio down, please. Turn your radio down. So we went through all of that, and we suddenly looked up. Our first guest was Madeleine Murray O'Hare, the atheist. So we knew we were visually dull. We had no stars. Stars didn't come to Dayton, Ohio.
Right.
So we had to survive on issues. And my first guest was the atheist who took prayer out of public schools. Well, kaboom! In Dayton, Ohio, they knew there was a new TV show on television at 10:30, and suddenly I looked up and we had an audience which we inherited from another program, and I would be interviewing, grand interviewer that I am, and I noticed during the commercials these women in the audience were asking very good questions. So one day I jumped out, and here we are. And it was the audience that saved our show.
Great, of course, because some of the things that worked on radio wouldn't work on television.
Well, also
but other things that...
Yeah, but we, I don't know if you remember those days, you never saw the audience of these shows. You would see them maybe through a rose-colored gel, you remember? Or yellow or green, whatever it was. The audience was told by a sign when to applaud. We took the cameras and pulled them behind the audience and moved the audience up to the stage and our goal every day was to have a community develop between me, the guest, and the audience, and it almost always did.
Yeah. Let me ask you again about the 29 years of Donahue. What were a couple of your proudest moments?
Oh my. We had Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged. The Donahue Show featured Margaret Mead. The Donahue Show featured the first test tube baby from England, Louise Brown, right there on my stage. Imagine, test tube baby, back then.
Yeah.
Whoa. We had the Sepulvedas, a couple south of here, Loma Linda. Loma Linda's not going to be pleased with me bringing this up again. Loma Linda refused to transplant the kid because I'm trying to be fair about this, but among other things, the parents smoked marijuana. So they literally chose not to transplant the kid. And it got in the paper, and the whole nation collapsed on top of Loma Linda.
Sure.
And they're on the show. The couple is on the show with little Jessie.
Who needs a transplant.
Who needs a transplant. And the phone, I'm taking calls, and I took a call, and it was a nurse from, I want to say Battle Creek, somewhere in Michigan. And she said, we have a heart. I mean, the audience stopped breathing. And the Sepulvedas took their baby, and I said, Godspeed. And they left the studio in the middle of the show to go to, Michigan to have the transplant.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. Alas, it has a sad ending. We lost Jesse after the operation. He lived a while, and I went to the funeral. And you don't forget those things. I mean, his father played the guitar and sang a song. Oh, I'll never forget it. To name a few moments. Sorry for talking so much.
No.
You're going to throw me these underhand pitches. I mean, you'll never get me out of here.
It was clear that you were back there for that moment. Let me say that I'm Terry McNally, and I'm speaking with the familiar voice of Phil Donahue, host for 29 Years of Donahue, and co-director and executive producer of a new documentary, Body of War. And it's a very, very powerful film. Before we move on to Body of War, let me ask you briefly about what I referred to at the top, about your experience at MSNBC. And to kind of put it in a context and kind of hit two birds with one stone, I want to hear about what happened there. And then if you'd reflect a little bit on MSNBC's Keith Olbermann.
Well, God bless Keith Olbermann, and let's hope he has a long and successful life on TV. He is in my time slot.
I know, and they're letting him do things that...
Well, it only took almost 4,000 bodies to come home from this war. And now people are saying, well, maybe. The experience, I went back to on the air because I couldn't believe everybody wanted to bomb something. Everybody wanted to bomb somebody. And all I was saying was, oh, hey, wait a minute. I was against the bombing of Afghanistan. I said, we're dropping bombs on people who live in caves? Should the most powerful nation on earth be doing that? I thought, well, hell, people who hate my message will listen. Will be different because everybody else was beating the war drum. The Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the L.A. Times, the Boston, the Chicago Tribune, name a paper.
The Washington Post as much as anybody.
I mean, and the nation's heartbeat started to
And every
war.
expert you saw was some retired general.
And those who were against the war before the invasion of 2003 muted themselves. It's a fascinating study, really, in behavior. As this nation prepared to go to war, and it was clear we were going, you had to shut up and sing. Every anti-war personality on MSNBC muted themselves when the run-up to the war began. It's important to know the pressure that came down on the people in media. You were a wimp if you didn't support the war. You were not patriotic. You didn't support the troops. You weren't really an American. You were, on and on. The business of marginalizing the dissenting voice was so total that we had almost no dissent at all.
As someone, I was on a panel once, and I'm not remembering her name right now, but she had been, I think, at CNN at the time. She said her belief was that what they did was they tested. They focus group and polled, and they said, what do people want to hear?
Absolutely
and then that dictated what you would report.
She was right. I think you may be speaking of Ashley Banfield.
It wasn't. It was, I think her name is Christine Bergeron.
Oh, well.
But she's written a book called Buzzsaw, which is about people who got censored. In any case, but that was her interpretation, was that they fed back to the audience what the audience was in the mood for, regardless of the truth.
Well, they took focus groups on me. They'd put, 35 people in a room and show them a tape of one of my shows. I remember they showed one of me and Koppel. I interviewed Koppel, had him on the show, and I did challenge him. Now, remember, this is before the invasion. And I said, well, tell me what you think. He said, I can argue it both ways. I said, well, give me the thing for war. Well, what if we have to, weapons of, because you can't be and you ought to. And I kept saying, I said to him, what if? Do you want to go to war on what if?
Or on best case scenario, which was the other side of it.
They took the focus group survey of me with 35 people. I guess you pay $1,500. There are companies out there will put 35 normal, average people, whatever they are, in the room. 85% of the people who saw that program did not like me.
Uh-huh.
I was called into the office of the president of NBC News, and like a schoolboy being scolded. It's amazing to be in the news on television today. is, certainly to be between a rock and a hard place. You're supposed to tell people what they don't want to know, and you won't succeed unless they like you.
Right.
So you have to be popular, which is a very difficult thing to be when you're reporting news they don't want to hear.
Exactly.
So it's the problem. That's why we had such a lemming-like mainstream media when the president. And I also believe, most of these large media companies have boards of directors made up of white male Republicans, for which belief I do not think they should be waterboarded. But we should have more than that view at the top. It's and dissent is not good for business.
Right.
Dissenters are crabby. They're never satisfied. I mean, how many people have said that to me? That's the trouble with you liberals. You don't really love America. I mean, I had my colleagues say that to me. So it was a big, I never have been this naive in my life. I actually thought I thought I'd stay and people would watch because I'm different. Right. People who hated what I was saying would watch. But we never really got the chance. We were on the air maybe 4 or 5 months in before the invasion, before the American troops rolled into Baghdad in March of 2003. We were gone. Yeah,
you were gone in late February,
right,
so that they could go into the march into Baghdad without your dissenting voice on the air.
And that's why I'm fascinated with Keith Olbermann. And wish him well. He's doing things that I would. I mean, they would have absolutely turned blue if I said things like that.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't. Yeah, he just doesn't have a guest on to say it. He's doing those special comments. Another one, I think, last night on torture and Mukasey. Let me tell people that voice you hear is Phil Donahue, host for 29 years of Donahue, and we were speaking of his brief tenure at MSNBC. He's the co-director and executive producer of a new documentary, Body of War. Let's talk about that. This is your first experience as a co-director.
Yes.
Is it your first experience making a documentary, and then how did this happen?
Well, I had done a number of things for example, I did a 5-part series that aired at night across the board in 1985 on MSNBC titled The Human Animal.
Oh.
It was about, why do we behave this way? Who are we? What determines, how we behave, and why are we always at war, and why are men so aggressive? And it did very well. But I didn't direct it and I didn't produce it. I hit my mark, and by the way, I didn't pay for it, a big difference. So this is the first one and I was very blessed to find a cinematographer who is my co-director and partner by the name of Ellen Spiro. Ellen teaches documentary making at the University of Texas at Austin. And here we are after almost 3 years of working together. She still likes me. This is a tremendous achievement. And, you have two people driving one horse, riding one horse. And yet we somehow, we've certainly had creative differences, but we worked them out, and here we are. And,
you don't need to respond to this, but one of the things that I mused about was how, having done a show which was made up on the fly for all those years, what an opposite experience it is to be in an editing room thinking about, do we cut 2 seconds earlier or 1 second later?
Yes.
I mean, when you do the recitation of the votes for the invasion, some are quick, some are short. All those decisions, such an opposite experience from that spontaneous work you did for so many years.
Absolutely so. But somehow, so many wonderful things happened. I got very, very lucky. My first break was Ellen. Ellen Spiro is just wonderful. Everything she shot was usable. It's just, I can't get over her talent.
Tell people what is Body of War. I referred to it at the top, but radio, people have tuned in since then. You link two stories. One focuses on an individual, one focuses on Congress.
And the part of the film that focuses on Congress focuses on the October 2002 Iraq War debate, which everyone who sees our movie will realize was a superficial, bumper sticker debate. Robotic senators and House members got up. A smoking gun can become a mushroom cloud.
When you show how every one of them is repeating the same talking points.
White House Iraq Group, WIG. These were the ad agency warriors who gave us shock and awe. They name our wars like they're video games. Well, these are the same people who gave the talking points to the Congress. A gun smokes after it's been fired. And another senator says, a gun smokes after. And by the time the third, fourth person says this, you're saying to yourself, this is the debate that brought us this, the most serious, horrible, massive foreign policy blunder of my lifetime.
Yeah. And the thing that you see in that piece of it, as you say, is that clearly there was no debate. Clearly these people did not take their responsibility seriously. The same people who didn't read the Patriot Act before they passed it, almost unanimously.
That's absolutely so.
So, and the other side is one individual, Thomas Young.
Right.
How did you run into him?
I was visiting my old friend Ralph Nader in Washington, on whose campaign I had been a participant in 2000. And then to save my marriage, I got off the bus in 2004. I mean, Marlo was really upset with me, and I was going to elect another Republican, and who do I think I am? So I got off. I got off the bus. After the election, I went to see him. I thought, well, if anybody needs a hug, because Ralph was really taking incoming. And we go back to
Yeah, I know 60. You do. He was the most frequent guest you ever had on your show.
He was. And during our conversation, he said, a mother at Walter Reed wants to see me. Do you want to go? I said, yeah, I'd never been to Walter Reed. So back I fly a week later, and off me and Ralph. Well, this kid, you could hardly see him in the sheets because he was so pale. You could see his cheekbones. He was wall-to-wall morphine. I met his mother. By the way, I don't think he remembers this visit at all. And I learned about the gravity of his injury. He's a T4, which means his spine was severed. Anatomists know what that means. He is paralyzed from the chest down. And to see this young man close up, the closer you get to this, you look at this kid. He has bowel and bladder problems. You see a person in a wheelchair, oh, poor person, he can't walk. It's a lot more than that.
And when people see the film, they will see that.
Yeah, they will. Words, this is a very close-up look at the harm and
very close-up look.
Right. And what we have here is, if this Congress had obeyed the Constitution, only Congress can declare war. They didn't declare war. They put their hand over their eyes, and they handed a piece of paper to the president, which said, if you think that way, when he goes to war, if it doesn't work, they can say, well, we didn't realize, we didn't.
If I knew now.
Yeah. So you have it's a third rail issue, and nobody wants to take it. It's awful. James Madison, as you saw, it's too much of a temptation for one man. Only Congress can declare war. It's the most fabulous feature of our Constitution. Don't give one man the Army, the Navy, or the Marines. He'll get on his horse, he'll draw his sword, and march to glory. I mean, they will. This is how men behave. And the framers knew this. They knew it, and we ignore it. I can't get over it. Yeah. The people who give prizes to young people for speaking at Daughters of the American Revolution banquets, or Rotary, why I'm proud to be an American. These are the same people who abandoned the Constitution first. They have people in cages, no papers, no Red Cross, no phone calls, lawyer, no family, no nothing. This is not the country that I was raised to pledge allegiance to. This is horrible what's happening. These radicals in Washington, bring them on. The next president who's tempted to say, bring him on, I want to say to him, I have a soldier for you. Before you make this decision, I want you to meet the 1st Cavalry's honorably discharged United States Army Specialist Thomas Young, a Heartland kid, Kansas City, signed up 913, wanted to get the evildoers.
Wanted to go to Afghanistan.
Watch the president on top of the pile. He was at Fort Hood training when the light bulb went on for him. Why am I going to Iraq? But, you're at Fort Hood. Not too many people, want to pick it while they're in basic. So off he goes. He's there 5 days and he gets shot.
Yeah. And as he describes it, he says that he was in a 2.5-ton pickup, 2.5-ton truck with a bunch of soldiers unprotected and unarmored. He said we were
and no top.
That's what I'm saying. So they just were shot by a sniper. This wasn't a roadside bomb.
Fish in a
shot
barrel.
by a sniper,
Yeah.
and he says it's like shooting ducks in a barrel.
Yes, he does say that.
This is Free Forum. I'm Terry McNally, and I'm speaking with Phil Donahue, the longtime host of Donahue and the co-director and executive producer of a new documentary called Body of War, which is what we're talking about right now. Body of War intersperses the personal story of a young, the wounded veteran that we talk about, and the vote by the Senate. We see the Senate vote 77-23 to authorize Bush to go into Iraq if he wants to, which I would say is the wounding of the Constitution.
Oh, in so many ways, really. Wiretaps. I mean, it's, a rendition. And why is torture such a complicated, controversial? The next American prisoner who gets tortured in some woe-begotten place with no media, no flashlights, no nothing. I mean, how can the president live with the knowledge that we're going to get what we gave?
Of course. That's why John McCain is so clearly against that. One of the things, by the way, that's happening on the torture issue right now, Phil, is it's come out that Daniel Levin, do you know about this?
No.
Someone within the Justice Department whose job it was to give opinions about what was torture and what wasn't, actually went and asked to be waterboarded.
Wow.
He was waterboarded, and for anyone who doesn't know it, look it up. Google waterboarding. When they say simulated drowning, you go, oh, so what is this, some psychological thing? No. What it is that they let enough blood into your lungs so that you feel that you're dying. And so he went through it, but he had the right
enough
to stop
water,
him.
I think you mean.
Yeah, what did I say?
Blood.
Oh, water.
Enough water, yeah. As in pneumonia or drowning.
Right.
Yes.
And so Levin went through this, but he had he could stop it. So he stopped it, and then he said, this is torture, and they fired him.
You're kidding.
No, that's what happened, and that just came out. That's what Oberyn was talking about yesterday.
My.
So we've got about 2 more minutes. What's your feeling, having made this film, about the film and about where we stand in Iraq?
Well, my first feeling is that the American people will never be safe or feel safe until we have leaders in Washington who reach out rather than lash out. We appear to all the world to be a warrior nation. And it is also clear, as Norman Solomon has instructed us in a book titled War Made Easy, if a United States president wants a war, he can have one. Americans must return to the original vision of the framers. Only Congress can declare war. We should return to the tradition of diplomacy, and we should remind ourselves how much we have to sell. This is a fabulous democratic experiment we are all part of, most of us by accident of birth. I mean, what a wonderful document is the United States Constitution. I mean, it protects the powerless against the tyranny of the majority. It's a fabulous idea. And we should be selling it to the rest of the world in our own civil, courteous, generous, respectful way. Instead, we're like a giant stomping around the playground. We're beating our chest and we're saying we're the last remaining superpower. Well, the more you say that, the more you feel you have to somehow prove it. And if you spend $500 billion a year, $500 million a year.
500 billion.
Okay, you're right, billion. Sorry,
But who's
billion. That's $500 billion a year on things that go boom.
Yeah.
If you do that, you're going to use them.
Yeah.
You can't. I mean, otherwise, why have them? And then the arms merchants will say, hey, wait a minute, hold it. There's a lot of profit here. We got to keep this up. You can't do it unless you scare the people. And the Bush administration has had a very long run of the politics of fear. It worked. If you scare the people, you can do almost anything.
Okay, that's the voice of Phil Donahue. Again, the film is Body of War. The site to learn more about it is bodyofwar.com. Thank you to G, my engineer, Stan Mizrahi in production, Matt Perez in traffic. To you, my listeners, I look forward to being with you again next week. Email me at temcnally@mac.com with questions and comments, or if there's someone that you want to hear on the show, or temcnally@mac.com if you want to get on my weekly list telling you who's going to be on and what we're going to talk about. You've been listening to Freeform with Terry McNally. Visit temcnally.podomatic.com or iTunes, where these interviews are archived. They're also archived at kpfk.org. Thank you, Phil Donahue. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much, Terrence.
In the second half, you'll hear my 2008 conversation with Nobel Peace Prize winner Muhammad Yunus about his book, Creating a World Without Poverty. Yunus has been serving since August 8th as the chief advisor of the interim government of Bangladesh, following the resignation of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina amid nationwide protests against the government. You can learn more at GrameenFoundation.org and MuhammadYunus.org. Hello, I'm Terry McNally, and welcome to Freeform. What if you could harness the power of the free market to solve the problems of poverty, hunger, and inequality? Well, some would say that's impossible, but Nobel Peace Prize winner Muhammad Yunus is doing exactly that. I went to a monastery for a weekend in about 1995 and asked what work I should do. And what came to me was to find a way to ask those with positions of responsibility and some leverage in the world the following two questions. Place yourself a couple of decades in the future. So today that might be 2025 or 2030. And answer this question. Did humanity turn things around? And if your answer is no, you got to live with that. But if your answer is yes, then I want to know how we did it. Looking from the future, how did we turn things around? A year later, I began doing this radio show. Now, as it turns out, I haven't asked that question of many of my guests over the years, maybe about a dozen. But as I was preparing for today's guest, I realized that that is what this interview is ultimately going to be about. As founder of Grameen Bank, Muhammad Yunus pioneered microcredit, the innovative banking program that provides poor people, mainly women, with small loans that they can use to launch businesses and lift their families out of poverty. And over the past 30 years, microcredit has spread to every continent and benefited over 100 million families. Now, in his new book, Creating a World Without Poverty, Yunus pioneers the idea of social business, a completely new way to use the creative power of business to tackle social problems. He asks us to imagine a world in which there are no more poor people. In such a world, when a child asked his or her parents, I saw the word poverty in a book, what does it mean? They would reply, we'll take you to visit the Poverty Museum. It looks to me that he's been asking himself my two questions. Every week I say that on Freeform we explore the lives, the work, the ideas of individuals that I suspect have pieces of the puzzle of a world that just might work. We look at new, innovative, provocative approaches to business, environment, health, science, politics, media, culture, all based on the fact that I believe we can do better, and I want to find out how. In the more than 10 years of this show, I can think of few, if any, guests who more truly represent that ideal than Muhammad Yunus. Yunus was born in Chittagong, a seaport in Bangladesh, the third of 14 children, educated at Dhaka University, and then awarded a Fulbright scholarship to study economics at Vanderbilt University in Tennessee. He then served as chairman of the economics department at Chittagong University before devoting his life to providing financial and social services to the poorest of the poor. He's the founder and managing director of Grameen Bank, author of the best-selling Banker to the Poor, and Yunus and the Grameen Bank are the winners of the 2006 Nobel Peace Prize. It's an honor and a privilege to welcome you to Freeform.
Thank you. It's an honor for me.
Thank you. Now, I have the feeling we could fill more than the whole half hour with your answer to the first question I'm going to ask you, which is, could you share a bit of your path to the work that you're doing today? So since we can't take the whole half hour, can you just briefly, a bit of the story of discovery? Over the years, what questions have you been asking to which microlending and all that has come from that were the answer?
Well, I began back in Bangladesh in 1976 in the context of famine that was going on in the country. And here I am teaching beautiful theories of economics, and I see how useless those conversation was. So I wanted to be useful to people next door to the university campus in the village. So I went there to see if I can do anything for even 1%, one person, even for a day. It's just whatever I can do. So I did a lot of small things, and I saw how the loan sharks in the village making their life miserable. So I made a list of the people who were borrowing from the loan sharks. And when my list was complete, there were 42 names on that list. And the total money they needed was $27. So I was shocked by the whole thing. And then I realized that the problem is a very difficult one, but the solution is so simple. If I give $27 from my pocket, they will be free from the loan sharks. That's what I did. Then enormous amount of happiness you see that generated in those families. So I asked myself, if you can make so many people so happy with such a small amount of money, why shouldn't you do more of it? So I wanted to do more of it. And one idea came, why don't I go to the bank, which is located in the campus, to lend the money to the poor people in the village next door? When I proposed to the bank said, no, bank cannot lend money to the poor. So I went on arguing with them, their higher officials and so on. For months, they wouldn't do that. So finally, I offered myself as a guarantor. I said, I'll sign all your papers, and you give the money, and I take all the risk. So that's how the whole thing came about in 1976, and it worked. I came out with simple rules and procedures which will make it easy for people to pay back, and they did. And then I kept on expanding and expanding. But the bank was not too enthusiastic about it. So I thought maybe I should have a separate bank for the poor people. And then 2 years of a lot of negotiations with the government, finally authorities allowed me to separate bank to be established. So I did that. It became the Grameen Bank, or the Village Bank. And
that's what Grameen means, right?
Grameen means village, Grameen Bank. Now today we have 7.5 million borrowers in Bangladesh. 97% of them are women. They take tiny little loans for income-generating activity and change their life.
An example of an activity, an example of a loan.
Loan would be something like, initial loan would be something like $30, $35 to buy some chicken, or do some basket making, buy raw materials to do the basket making, or buy some fabrics to make dresses and so on. So very simple thing people that are familiar with doing, and they can sell this and make money for themselves. These are illiterate women, never been in business before. Then she never thought she can do something like that. But seeing one another, they come up with ideas and gradually grow. Today, average loan in Grameen Bank would be something like $150. So there are many, many people who take loans above that, but most of them are around that.
Mm-hmm. And so in the past, with the loan sharks, they would borrow the money from the loan shark, and then almost everything they made, the baskets, the chickens, whatever it was,
everything went back to the loan sharks. So the condition, like first person that really gave me the shock, she was making bamboo stools, and a beautiful bamboo stool. And I couldn't figure out why she is so poor if she's making such beautiful bamboo stool. So then she explained to me she didn't have the money to buy the bamboo, so she had to borrow from the loan sharks. And how much was the money she had to borrow from the loan sharks? 25 cents. And the condition of the borrowing is, whatever you produce, you have to sell it to me at the price that I decide. So that means she never gets anything for herself. She is a slave labor for the loan shark.
So once you have the initiative in that world, once you have the initiative to do something, you actually become a slave.
Absolutely, yes, because this is a trap you can't get out of, because you don't have the money, and when you borrow the money, the guy who is lending you the money takes away everything, so you don't have any money left.
God. I'm Terry McNally, and I'm speaking with Nobel Peace Prize winner Muhammad Yunus, pioneer of microcredit, and we're going to talk about his new book, Creating a World Without Poverty. Let me ask one question. When I was reading your biography, I was surprised to realize that you spent some formative years, aged 25 to 32, in the U.S., studying and teaching at Vanderbilt and Middle Tennessee State, from formative years for America, 65 to 72. Did those years in America have any influence on what's happened since?
Oh, it is. It was a very useful time that I spent here. This was the time of the civil rights movement. So I saw how the civil rights movement was being fought in this country. This was the time for the flower children, the hippies. This was the time for anti-Vietnam War demonstrations, students fighting against the authorities not to go into Vietnam, and also stop war in Vietnam. So all these things were happening. There's this social upheaval going on. And I'm taking sides this way or that way, debating, discussing, and watching it, what's happening in the country. So I learned a lot in the process.
I mean, the fact that you went on to become not just an economics professor, but a social entrepreneur.
Yes, indeed. I saw the social milieu at that time, so how transitions take place, how one idea changes into another idea, how you stand up for those ideas. In the beginning, it looks like you have absolutely no chance, but you keep on fighting and it happens.
Exactly. I actually saw that James Lawson, I think, he had studied, I know, in India. One of the civil rights leaders in America of the sit-ins, and he'd learned civil disobedience from folks who'd learned from Gandhi.
Yes,
so I like the cross-fertilization.
Yes, cross-fertilization. The peaceful marching for a cause that you believe in what it is.
Yeah. I mentioned the term social entrepreneurship. What is that? Because, and let me put a little more context around it. I mean, I assume you've been a social entrepreneur since before they came up with the term. Some people would say, oh, it sounds like jargon, but I think you find it a useful term and a useful model.
It's one way to describe what people are doing. Many people take initiative in changing the world, changing their neighborhood, changing things the way it is done. So you need a description who these people are. And you are doing it not for your own personal gain. You are doing for bringing gain to the society, bringing gain to the world. So they are described as social entrepreneurs. It could be a very small neighborhood thing, but you are taking initiative beyond the call of your normal duty. You did it because you felt it strongly that it should be done. This needs to be done. So
I know Bill Drayton of the Ashoka Fellows. He says that we've all heard the thing of you can either give someone a fish or teach them to fish. And he says social entrepreneurs change the way we fish.
Yeah, that's right. That's another way of looking at it. Yeah.
Have there been things? When I said this thing about you were probably a social entrepreneur before the term even existed, have there been lessons learned over the evolution of social entrepreneurship, that certain things that people thought it wasn't, and that there's some sort of real wisdom that's evolved over time about why it works and what makes it work?
I would say when the term is coined and it's already used for people describing who are these people, then you start looking at it. One good thing came out of it. In the beginning, you thought you are alone, and this is a kind of odd kind of thing. People look at you. Why are you doing this? What's in it for you? Then you didn't have any good answer. But when this term was coined and everybody's introduced this as a social entrepreneur, you see there are a lot of them like you. And you learn from each other. Because you're doing something, some guy somewhere else is doing completely different thing, and it's changing the society. So that brings you the courage and confidence that I'm not alone. There are other guys like me, and there are many things I can learn from them. So this became a community of their own. They inspire each other. I think that's the most important thing that had happened.
Yeah, and that makes very good sense. In other words, one social entrepreneur alone is Don Quixote.
Right.
But a bunch of them are a lot of change. The Norwegian Nobel Committee, when it awarded the Peace Prize to you and to the Grameen Bank, it said it was for your efforts to create economic and social benefit from below. And my guess is that means that concept of from below is more than microcredit, isn't it?
Yes, it's more than microcredit. Microcredit is just a platform that you create to other things to happen. For example, we started giving housing loans so that you can build a house. Still, it's a credit. Then we encourage them to send their children to school. Today, 100% of the children of Grameen families are in school. These are all illiterate families. Mother doesn't read and write, father doesn't read and write, but the children are in school. Many of them are now in high school and many of them in colleges, universities, and Grameen Bank gives them a student loan. And as a result, there are 21,000 students who are in medical schools, engineering schools, and universities, and so on. So you create a completely new generation that's coming out of it. So one after another, and we introduce many different products like pension funds so that you can take care of your old age. You're a poor person. You worry always, what will happen to me when I grow old? Who is going to take care of me? Because there is no savings for them. So now we said, no, you take care of yourself. You can do that. You could put a little savings on the side, and that money will grow. And out of that, you have an income which will take care of your monthly requirement.
And although the changes, or let's say, although the loans are small, the changes are incremental, the time is long-term, Bangladesh has, in the years, let's see, you say 76, so we're now talking 30 years, has undergone great change, yes?
Oh, a lot of changes. Bangladesh is quite different now than it used to be 30 years back. One thing Bangladesh has dramatically achieved is the women empowerment. Situation of women has changed completely because of the programs that were introduced in Bangladesh, like microcredit and other things. And the population growth has come down. The population growth rate has dramatically changed. It used to be over 3%. Now it is less than 1.4%, which is way down. Also, the economy has been growing pretty good. It's a 6.7% growth rate in the economy. And the poverty has come down very sharply. We are one country which will be reaching the Millennium Development Goal of reducing poverty by half by 2015. So we are right on the track, and we are looking forward to achieving it by 2015. Our hope is we can even achieve it before 2015. So it's not something of a slogan that you raise, soon you forget whether you are going to do it or not. But for Bangladesh case, not only you will be achieving that Millennium Development Goal of reducing poverty by half by 2015, we are on the track to achieve all the 8 Millennium Development Goals. So I would say that is a fantastic achievement to achieve all the Millennium Development Goals by 2015.
And I believe you said at the very top that in 76, stirred by the famine. I mean, that famine was when Americans and a lot of other people in the world first learned of Bangladesh, and it was the poorest of the poor. It was the bottom.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, one thing that I read was that of all the banks in Bangladesh, not even 1% of the borrowers happened to be women. Now, I'm not sure when that was so, and yet you say 97% of Grameen borrowers are women, and it's part of the whole program. Is this idea of women empowerment going to be one of the things that changes the world so that we create a world without poverty?
Oh, it makes a significant difference in third world countries when you empower the women. It changes the society very fast. You change the whole new generation coming up, young girls, young boys. They look forward to completely different thing. I was referring to that 1% of borrowers not being women in the conventional banks in Bangladesh. This was in the 70s when I was struggling with them, trying to persuade and attacking them for being wrong. But the situation for the conventional bank has not changed much, even after those 30 years. Still, if you go to conventional bank, probably the percentage would be somewhere around that level, of 1% or less. Yeah.
Even though
all the things that we do in Grameen Bank. And
you have a phenomenal repayment rate.
Absolutely. Always, the Grameen Bank has been a very high repayment rate, near 100%, 98%, 99%. You remember Bangladesh is a country with floods, with cyclones, and all the bad news that comes out of it. Despite all those disasters, you remember the Katrina in Louisiana or New Orleans. What a dislocation it has created in people's life. We have that kind of Katrina every other year. In floods and cyclones. But Grameen Bank continues. We have established a procedure by which we can handle that kind of thing.
Yeah. You're listening to Free Forum. I'm Terry McNally, and the voice you hear is Nobel Peace Prize winner Muhammad Yunus, the pioneer of the Grameen Bank and microcredit, and we're talking about some of the vision he sees in the past and in the future in a book called Creating a World Without Poverty. You can learn more at GrameenFoundation.org, Grameen, GrameenFoundation.org, or at MuhammadYunus.org. One of the things that you said in your Nobel speech was You believe that we can create a poverty-free world because poverty is not created by poor people. It's created by a system and a way of thinking. Does the work you've done so far basically demonstrate that?
Yes, very much. First of all, it demonstrates repeatedly that there's nothing wrong with the poor people. Like the children that I was talking about, these children coming from the illiterate, poorest families, and today they are becoming doctors, engineers, and PhDs, and so on. It's already done. So you see the two generations side by side. The mother of this girl, who is a doctor now, could have been a doctor herself, but she's an illiterate person. So there's nothing wrong in the person. So only opportunities make them happen, the different one. The PhD student or the person who got the PhD, his or her mother is still illiterate, her father is illiterate, but she has the PhD. So that shows poverty is not caused by the poor people. Poverty is imposed on them, imposed by the system that we created around us. And look at the conventional banking system. It ignores all the millions of people on this planet. I would say almost 2/3 of the world population don't have the privilege of having services from the conventional banks. So what kind of system is that? And then I talk about business, the whole idea of business itself. If you look at it, the theory says business means business to make money. Profit maximization is the goal, is the mission of business. The theoreticians who framed those theories assume that human beings are like money-making machines. And I keep reminding that human beings are much bigger than just money-making machine. Money-making is an important part of human being, but that's not the totality of human being. Human beings are giving human beings, sharing human beings who go out and do the things for others. But all those things are missing from the...
Well, even the very fact that human beings, I mean, at its most very basic, we grow up in families, we grow up in villages.
Right.
And neither the family nor the village would work if, in fact, humans were one-dimensional.
Exactly. It's a one-dimensional human being. I said, so you created in your theory some robots, and we are trying to imitate those robots in our life because you are so impressive your theory. So we want to imitate you. And in the process, we destroyed ourselves. And in an insult to the human being, its capacities, I'm saying that to justify the totality of human beings, you have to have another kind of business. Business to do good to people without any intention of personally benefiting from it. Because the business that we know today, the theory that offers today, is all about me. I'm the one. I must get everything I want to. There's nothing for others. So I said that's where we went wrong. We can have another kind of business. We'll call it social business. It's a non-loss, non-dividend company with a social objective. And we can create it. And I'm not saying everybody has to go and do that kind of business. If you feel like you want to do something, here is an option. You can do that. So I could use my money to go into profit maximizing business, and at the same time I can run and participate in a social business also.
And one of the models you're going from is the fact that some of the wealthy do philanthropy. They contribute to charity. They have foundations.
Yes, there's lots of money. Billions of dollars have gone into foundations. So if you see, the economics doesn't allow you to do anything for others within its framework. So you have to step outside. You become a philanthropist. You go to the charities. If we could create the social business, that will offer us much more opportunity than charity. Charity dollar has only one life. Use it and it's done. Then if you want to do the same thing again, you need fresh money to brought in to do the same thing. But if you can design it as a business, it has that social business money will have unlimited life because it recycles. That's the beauty of a business. Then you can improve, you can reach out, you can bring efficiency, and so on. It could be healthcare program, it could be bringing good quality drinking water to the communities which doesn't have any good quality drinking water at an affordable price, or you can bring nutrition to the children. It could bring, in the United States, there are 47 million people without any health insurance. If we could create social business to bring health insurance for those people, that will be a wonderful thing to happen. And there are many people millions of people in this country who cannot open a bank account because banks will not let you do that because you're too small. So as a social business, you can do that.
Yeah, let me tell people, this is the voice of a Nobel Peace Prize winner, Muhammad Yunus. You're hearing he has a new book called Creating a World Without Poverty, and we're talking right now about some of the notions that makes him believe that such a thing is possible. I'm Terry McNally. Let's speak for the next 4 minutes about this notion of social business. I've only begun to see the term in the last few years, as maybe social entrepreneur 20 years ago. Is it really something different? That is to say, if you have a foundation and you do good, what you're saying the difference is that you spend the money you don't expect a return. In a social business, you expect a return, but it's just a return to be reinvested into, which is basically what a lot of startups do anyway. But what you're saying is at no point is the goal to generate profits.
For the investors.
Right.
The company can make profit, but the profit stays with the company. The investors, the owners of the company, must declare that I don't want anything for me in it.
They get a salary.
I can take back my investment money. If I work for the company, I can take salary. That's it. But no profit. I cannot take any dividend because the entire company is devoted for a social objective. Either it is improvement of the income situation of the poor people, or it could be slum clearance, or the education, health care, drinking water, whatever. That's my goal. I feel bad about it, so I want to address it myself. I don't want to dump everything on the shoulder of the government to do it. As a citizen, I have the capacity, I have the creativity, I can address it as a business.
And you're doing that within Grameen, correct?
Yes, we have been doing so many.
You have a cell phone business?
Cell phone business, most particularly one which we have done with the Grameen and the Danone company. Danone is a yogurt. Danone is,
right.
We have created a joint venture company called Grameen Danone Company in Bangladesh, in collaboration with the Danone of France, to produce yogurt. It's a very special kind of yogurt where we put all the micronutrients which are missing in the malnourished children, there are millions of malnourished children in Bangladesh. Iron, zinc, iodine, and vitamin, whatever is missing, we put it in the yogurt and sell it to them at a very, very cheap price. And the company covers its cost. The investors, the Danone and Grameen, they promise that they will never take any dividend out of it because this is geared towards the social objective of bringing nutrition to the children who are malnourished, and is doing pretty good.
And so Danone, a profit-making company in most of its work, has decided in this particular partnership with you, they're not making a profit.
That's true.
And
that's right.
Their shareholders, how do they react to this?
Their shareholders, they got the permission from the shareholders. They circulated a resolution to the shareholders. This money, we will not expect any return out of this. We are doing it for this. If you agree, sign it, we'll put your money. If you don't agree, we understand.
Ah, okay. So you could opt out of it.
Yeah.
As a
That's
shareholder.
Very clear, yeah. Very clear decision.
So let me go back to the two questions I said that I seldom ask. If you could look from 2030, 2035, you can name the year. Did humanity turn things around?
Oh, yes. Humanity will turn things around because things will have very different than what we have today because world is changing very fast. If you go back 35 years, you wouldn't imagine what will be in 2008. Soviet Union still be there, Berlin Wall still be there, you still don't have a desktop or a laptop or anything of the kind that is, or iPod or whatever you see right now. You won't have cell phones. You never dreamt that it's cell phone. But it happened. You don't know what will happen 35 years from today. It will be a completely different world which we cannot even imagine. It will be a Hollywood movie, a science fiction movie kind of thing. So unless we decide what kind of world we want to make, it will be maybe a chaotic world. So let's figure out what kind of world we want so that we can make it happen. You need to imagine before you can create. So let's imagine, and that world will be a world where not a single person will be a poor person, and we'll create poverty museum so that people can go and see what poverty used to be like.
Okay, so the books are Banker to the Poor and Creating a World Without Poverty. The websites are GrameenFoundation.org and MuhammadYunus.org. Thank you to G, my engineer, Stan Mizrahi in production, Matt Perez in traffic, and to you, my listeners. Email me at temcnally@mac.com, temcnally@mac.com if you want a comment or you want a transcript or a CD, or if you want to get on a weekly list where I tell you who's going to be on and what we're going to talk about. You've been listening to Free Forum with Terry McNally. You can listen to this week's conversation and many other Free Forum interviews at any time during the week by linking to the podcast at temcnally.podomatic.com or at iTunes. And this program is going to be archived for 90 days at kpfk.org. Thank you, Muhammad Yunus, and keep up the good work.
Thank you for inviting me.